Good morning. Glad you joined us this morning as our Red Letter Challenge continues as we have our coffee ponder this morning. This morning I'm pondering over some Highlander grog by Cameron's Coffee. Rum and butterscotch flavor. That's a good hearty coffee. Well, today in our Red Letter Challenge, it's Storytelling Day. I love to tell stories. I have stories that will, I could start a story podcast and tell a different story every day, and I don't think I'd run out of stories from experiences I've had in my life, both in and out of ministry. I have lots of stories. And I love to retell Bible stories. To make them come alive for people. I would have no end of resources there if I wanted to start doing a new Bible story retold every day. But today we're focusing on different stories, not on my stories, not on Bible stories, on your story. So what's your story? No, you do have a story to tell. I know some of you out there are going, no story here, no story here. But when it comes to your story of faith, the walk of faith that you've journeyed, you do have a story. Oh, it might not be one of those dramatic stories. I was raised by wolves in the jungle and later was adopted by a band of gypsies and got into doing drugs and I was robbing liquor stores, and then I went to jail and I met Jesus, and now I'm an evangelist. It might not be one of those stories. It might be a story of God's eternal faithfulness on this journey of life. It may be a story of God walking with you through some really terrible times, through the death of a child or a spouse, through the ending of a marriage. It could be his faithfulness when it seemed like your whole world was falling apart, and he held your hand and got you through to the other side. It might be a story of that time when you found peace when all the circumstances of your life said otherwise. And it might be that God has just let you in on some of the most fantastic secrets of the things that he does. Maybe you've just been so blessed to see the awe of God's creation from so many vantage points. I don't know what your story is, but I know you have one. And I also know that unless we take time to really think about it, what has God done in my life that's made a difference for me? How has he changed me? How has he helped me, walked with me, guided me? Unless we actually take the time to literally put pen to paper and write some of those things down, well, maybe we don't think we have one. So I want you to take some time today. Like the Red Letter Challenge book says, put it down, pen on paper. You can use a keyboard if you need, but I think there's even something tactile about using a pen or pencil and writing down your story, figuring out just what you would tell someone if they said, tell me your story. Tell me about what God has done for you. For many years, my wife and I have helped world servants lead mission trips. We've gone around the world in various places and all over the United States, leading trips. And when we've done that, part of the training is to give everyone a blank piece of poster board and some magazines, and they're to make a collage of their story. Well, about the first 5, maybe 10 minutes of that time, there's a lot of blank stares of people looking at each other with great concern, like, what in the world am I going to put on this board? My story. And finally, we give them a few ideas, and pretty soon the scissors are going and the schnibbles are flying, and they're putting stuff down. They find a picture of water, and they put some water down, and they begin with the story of their baptism. and the faithfulness of God from that journey. And maybe they've had some kids along the way, and pretty soon you see a picture of a family and put a family picture on there. And I don't know their stories until they tell me. But at the end of that time, everyone in the room has a story. They're all different. They're all similar and yet vastly different, because they're all telling the story of the same gracious God who works in their lives. So what's your story? I'd love to hear your story, to be perfectly honest. If you're bold enough to send it to me, I'd love to read it. I promise not to put it on a podcast or as a chapter in a book unless it's really good and I get your permission. But go ahead. Be bold. Be daring. Step out of your zone today and write your story, what God has done in your life. And then I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to share your story with someone. Just find one person. Maybe it's someone in your household, a neighbor. Maybe you haven't gone and met the neighbors yet. It's a good time to go do it and share your story with them. So pick up the pen and paper, brew another cup of coffee. And let's do some story crafting. Well, until tomorrow, happy storytelling. I'll be back here tomorrow with a fresh edition of the Coffee Ponder Red Letter Challenge Edition. Be blessed.